Hey guys, it's Grant from Local Scraper, and I just wanted to take a moment to demonstrate how to use lists using Local Scraper because I've had a lot of questions and emails about it, and apparently it's a little hard to get across in just text on the README page, so I'm putting together this little video for you. Okay, using lists, for example, the keyword list and the location list is a separate part of the program from the single search options. So what I mean is that if you have a keyword list, you cannot just place a location in the location box. The two things are separate. If you're going to use a keyword, you can use a location. If you're going to use a keyword list, you have to have a location list. So consider like this half of the program separate from these options because these are independent. We have essentially two options for list. You can use a keyword and location list, which is the first option. And the second option is you can use a list of custom URLs. Now I'll show you real quick what I mean. I'll go to my location list here. I'm using Notepad in Windows. It's included on every version of Windows. I highly recommend you use Notepad because if you try to copy and paste from Excel, or if you try to use WordPad or something like that, or even Microsoft Word or anything else, it often leaves in this invisible sort of formatting that's customized to that Word program. So Notepad doesn't have any of this. So I use Notepad because I don't want any little hidden custom returns at the end of my sentences. I don't want anything else in there. And often I have people say, I'm running a list and it's stopping at, the second thing in the list, like what's going on. They send me the list. I essentially just copy their list back into Notepad, resave it, and send it back to them, and suddenly it works again. So if at all possible, try to make your things in Notepad. You can copy and paste from like Excel into Notepad, but if you run into errors, try to see if there's anything like hidden in it, like maybe you can see an extra return or something. And if worst case scenario, just try to type out your lists. So this is my location list. These are locations. I have included the city and state for this. This is an example of something a client had said earlier, was that they had their list just said arts district, and they couldn't understand why it wouldn't work. Well, we're putting these into, say, Google or Yelp or any of the other sites. And when we enter in a location, we're essentially putting in, I am looking for keyword near location into the search box, like in Google. And Yelp and stuff, we're putting it just straight into the location. So if you put in arts district, it won't know where you're talking about. The same thing for Miami. There is a Miami, Ohio. There's a Miami, Florida. A lot of times, just a city name won't work because they're duplicated somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in the US. I mean, if you're using Yelp and Google Maps and Yahoo and Bing, they do provide international results. So by not, you might even have to include a country in it so you don't end up with, Miami, Spain or something if such a place exists. So I highly recommend you try to be specific. You can also, this is just a list of the locations. You can use zip codes in here. Again, try to include the state at least. I highly doubt they would be duplicated anywhere, but remember this is like these sites can be international. Maybe you put in 33040 or something, and it just happens that matches some sort of weird thing in France. You never know. So try to be specific on the locations. Here is a example list of keywords. Now the thing to notice here is that these line up exactly. If you're going to use lists of locations and businesses, locations and keywords, they have to line up exactly line per line. Okay, the program's not very smart. I really didn't want to spend a lot of time like on list intelligence. It seemed the easiest way to do this is to just line up the line per line. So what's going to happen is the program's going to open both the lists, and it's going to go, okay, what's on line 1 of the location list and what's on line 1 of the keyword list. In this case, it's businesses, and it's in this town in California. So the scraper will scrape that. Once it's done with that, it'll move on to line 2. It'll go, what is on line 2 of the keyword, what is on line 2 of the location, and it will find this. Now it does complicate a little things, because as you see, if you're repeating, if you're just looking for the same thing, you will have to repeat it. The same with the location. If I wanted these to be different, like tacos, pizza, I don't know, hotels, and instead I wanted them all to be in this specific location, I have to repeat it just as I did with the keywords previously. So it is kind of hard, but it's the easiest way for the program to understand what exactly you're looking for. I think it allows a lot of freedom because you can do completely different places. We'll add a thing. Miami, Florida. Get rid of that period. And we'll throw in Key West, Florida also. And I'm going to look for Cuban food and hotels. Now, if I had a list with one location in it and all of these keywords, I wouldn't be able to mix around the locations, you see? So in a way, this kind of works better, even though there's a little more work needed. You will need to go into Excel or something, and you will have to copy and paste over. But as I'll mention in a moment, it won't really be that rough. Now the other option you have is the custom URLs, and a custom URL looks a lot like this. This is one from Yelp.com. The search is for food in New York, and I'm starting at results 100 here. Now the way you get this is you just take this from the URL bar from Yelp, from your browser, for whatever you're searching. All the scrapers support custom URLs except for Google Maps, because they hide that stuff from you, and up in the URL bar, it just says, maps.google.com, and that never really changes. So I didn't want it to confuse people. So for Google Maps, there's no custom URLs. So the list won't work either. But say, I don't have a whole bunch of these other ones prepared, but we'll just make like a couple. Again, we'll do pizza starting at 0. We'll do hotels starting at, say, 500. Now, normally, when you're doing your first scrape, you won't include these start variables. But they're already there, so I'm just going to leave them. Here, just so it looks better, tacos. Okay, now this list would make sense. We don't have anything repeated, and what will happen is I'll feed this list into the custom URL choose file here, and it'll start on line 1, it'll run the scrape. Once that's done, it'll go to line 2, run the scrape. If you're using the custom URL list, then the locations list and the keyword list should both be empty. The keyword and location and custom URL should all be empty. You should just be using the one thing. when it comes to lists, also some advice that I've been giving users is to try to keep your lists small. I've had some I've had some users email me, and they've actually had lists of like 500 locations, all repeating like the same thing, like golf courses or something. And they wanted like every golf course in, I don't know, Florida or something like that. So they had a list of every city in Florida, and then they repeated golf courses. Now, of course, this is the kind of data that we want. This is what the program's used for, and it's capable of doing that, but it's just not capable of doing it in one go. The problem with using lists is that it's easy to copy and paste them into there, but then you realize that, say, if I was doing these searches, the business tacos pizza, and I was doing them in these locations, and I was using, say, Yelp, Yelp can return, I believe the current limit is 3,000 results per place. So if you think each one of these lines is the bot going to 3,000 pages of Yelp, so we're already at what, 3, 6, 9, like it'll just keep going and going and going. With the people that send me lists of like 100 locations or more, I've done the math when I email them back. I tell them, like, you can't visit like 500,000 pages of Yelp in one day. I mean, it could be possible, but you're gonna need thousands of proxies, and the program would just crash and die like long before that. I try to make the memory management as good as possible, but it's just like a browser. Think of what would happen to Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever you use if you had opened up 500,000 tabs in a single day without closing the program. So what I'm recommending to people is to try to keep your lists to like 10 or 20. Like you could go a little higher if you have lots of proxies, because remember, each one of these things could be 2,000 results. Now, the exception to this is Google Maps. Google Maps is super quick, and they only provide 200 results. And right now we have our quick scrape on it, so really you're only visiting, what, 10 pages to get those 200 results. So each one of these, if I run them on Google Maps, is only 10 pages. So your list can be much bigger than 10 or 20 or something if you're using Google Maps. But again, not in the hundreds unless you have a lot of proxies, a lot of really good fast ones. Because if you're running the program forever and you don't have enough proxies, they'll eventually catch the proxies you're using and they'll kill you off. The longer the program runs, the more memory it consumes. So eventually the program will just kind of die out, you know? So what I recommend to people is keep your list short. Lists are a good way to semi-automate the program, but not a good way to like set it and forget it and come back in like a month. You're going to want to run a list, like I would run these lists. I would wait till they complete. I'd have my proxies and everything. And then I would close the program. I'd hit the little X. I'd close the program out. I would reopen the program. And then I would run my next list. What closing and reopening the program does is it frees up all the memory. So it like takes out the trash. The trash has been taken out. I'm good to run again. What I recommend people use lists for is, like, say you're leaving the office, you want to come back in the morning, and you want like a whole bunch of scrapes to be done. That's perfect. If you're going to go out to lunch or you have some sort of meeting, go ahead, like, use lists. They work out great. But really, you can't like run a list of a massive list and expect to come back in like 3 or 4 days and gather up the data. Maybe in future versions, but for right now, it's too much data for the little browser that we have. You see, we have a little web browser in here. It's too much data for the web browser to do. The same problem happens with Google and Firefox. It's very hard to get around, but So just a fair warning, guys. Try to keep your lists small. Try to keep them reasonable. If you're using anything other than Google Maps for your lists, remember that these could be upwards of 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 results like per search. This one line can be 3,000 pages of a website. Without a proxy, like, 3,000 pages just right back to back is going to get you noticed. But 6,000, 9,000 in one day, like if I had 9,000 people come to my website from one like IP address in one day, I would be really, suspect, and I would find them. So proxies are important. I always recommend proxies, but keep in mind the lists can be very big. Like you see them as being small, but you can have a really big list, and your really big list at 2,000 pages per thing could add up to like 500,000 page views, which is more than most websites see in a month. Small enough website, that could be their like thing in a year. Of course, Yelp and stuff, it's just like a drop in the bucket to them. But really, from one person and one day or over consecutive days of just constant scraping, it's just not wise. Okay? Well, I hope that cleared some things up for you guys. Again, the text is below if none of this made sense. And if you have any questions about lists, if your list isn't working, email me, and I'll try to get it sorted for you. All right? Thanks, guys.